Unfortunately, I don't have a garage, but fortunately, something did come in. Check it out.
Yeah, we gotta get this inside before somebody finds out.
So this is a brand new stepped intercooler. Before I open this up, one, let's go over why I got the smaller version of the intercooler, and two, the differences between the 5-inch and the 6.5 inch. So for those of you who don't know, that's my car. It's beautiful. I love it. It is the best build I've ever done in my entire life. The point of the build was to have good sound, which I already got, but now I have the bug and I want to keep on upgrading it to the point where I get to the big power. But I'm not going to be doing big power because one, it's too expensive for that car, and two, it's not worth it. So I'm basically doing full bolt-on until you get to some big boy power. I'm running a stage 2 at 93 octane, so realistically I think I'm pushing about 350, 400 if I'm lucky. It's fast, and it sounds freaking great like most of you have heard, but one of the biggest things, and the only upgrade I really haven't done to the engine that's not upgrading the turbo, is an intercooler and inlets. But obviously, there's no point in doing inlets if you're not doing a turbo. The intercooler gave me one fear. If I got a 5-inch, would it be plug and play? Which is the hope, that's why I got the 5-inch. So one of the most important things to note, obviously in any build that you're doing, is to obviously do research on what you specifically want and what you're trying to achieve. Those of you who don't know, or maybe you're just getting into BMWs, because there's still people out there, believe it or not, a newer N55 or an N55 in general is not going to be holding anywhere near as much power as you're probably thinking. With just a stage 2 at 93 octane, you are not pushing the 800 horsepower that you might be seeing. It does give you power, but in order to reach those high numbers, literally just probably around between 550 to 600 wheel horsepower, you're talking upgraded fuel systems, so low pressure fuel pump, flex fuel, new lines, fuel pumps, like high pressure fuel pumps, port injection specifically. You are running heavy power, and obviously new turbos, because the turbos are gonna do everything for you, but that's gonna cost you about 10 to 20 grand just for an N55. And on top of that, it's not gonna hold the power on a stock torque converter, transmission, pistons, and bearing. Oh yeah, so you're talking probably the price of an older model M340 or even a 340 in general. But it's just better to go that route with the B58. They're much more reliable in terms of holding power, but this is about the intercooler here. I got the 5-inch specifically because one, I didn't want to do any cutting of the fan shroud, and two, I didn't want turbo light. The main difference between the 5-inch and the 6.5-inch from Vrsf is that the 5-inch, well, it's rated from 500 to 600 wheel horsepower. You're not going to be getting there with the stage 2 tune only. You gotta have more upgrades than that. 6.5 is rated for, I think, like it's 800 wheel horsepower, and you ain't getting that point until you have everything stage 2 in terms of upgrades. I think I came out really clean. It'll cool the air a lot better than the stock intercooler. I think I've won, hopefully. An important thing to note when you're upgrading an intercooler of any car is to note that bigger doesn't always mean better, unless you are physically going to note to yourself that you're going to upgrade the turbos, or you have an existing upgrade for the turbos. So if you go with a bigger intercooler without any bigger upgraded turbos, then you're going to experience turbo lag. The only way this happens is when you have a turbocharger that isn't producing enough boost, sucks in the hot air, compresses the air, makes it go through the inlets, and then goes into the intercooler, which then gets cooled off. And sometimes when it's just too big, it doesn't cool off fast enough. So the air keeps on moving through the intercooler, goes out the outlets into the charge pipe to then go into the air intake manifold. Essentially, the engine runs better when you have cooler air. Using the tape as a handle here. I think it's kind of ingenuity. Nice. Okay. It actually looks really good. This base, I feel like maybe a little bit thicker than the stock, so that scares me just a little bit. It isn't the end of the world, though. I just hope there isn't any cutting involved. It doesn't seem nearly as heavy as the N54 that I had put in, but again, 5-inch versus 6.5. Like this thing so far is giving me a lot of hope. I think it should be fairly doable. We'll be putting this in later. Right now it's kind of nasty out, so all it does, instead of having bracketry like the N54, it bolts into the OEM spots. Again, hoping this is literally just a plug and play. This is the bad thing, is that when you're doing car upgrades or when something fails, you kind of have to look around the area to see if there's anything else you can upgrade, because I've actually taken that intercooler out already doing a charge pipe upgrade install, which that thing took me like 5 hours to do. It was insanely complicated for no reason, way worse than the N54, but we got it in and it seems to be doing really good. So I have that under my belt. It wasn't really hard to take out the intercooler. 2 bolts, taking off the hoses, and then pulling it down. That was it. So, theoretically, if this is just a plug and play, it's going to be one of the easiest car upgrades I ever do. And because my car now has H&R lowering springs, it has brought it down a dramatic amount. And unfortunately, I can't even get my low profile jack underneath my car without it hitting the bumper first. And of course, it's not long enough, so I got a few different other strategies you're about to see. They're very sketchy and I don't recommend doing them, but it did indeed work. Because I don't have a lift, which is why I've strongly considered buying one, not an actual lift, but like one of the floor ones. So with this guy here, we're gonna get the middle, pump it up to get enough room for a jack there, as well as the other side, and then use that guy for everything else, and I'm hoping that holds. So as you can see, I'm no longer able to use jack stands, which is very sketchy, because essentially if the middle one goes, well, at least I have the other side holding it up, but if that one fails and then it's only the small one, then I'm screwed, because that's a 2-ton holding up a majority of the weight of the car. I'd be a flat pancake, I'll tell you that. It wouldn't be a fun day. Here I'm taking out all, I think it's 20 or 22 8mm screws that hold up the underskirt of the front of the car. Somehow this is working out way better than I thought. But, like I was saying, this screw is the same exact thing on the left side. So I just need to get both of these screws out, disconnect these 2 hoses, and then that is literally it. Or at least it should be. Wish me luck. And if you guys remember at the beginning of the video, I said to always look around different parts and pieces if you know you have to upgrade something or are going to upgrade something. Because this here, I'm having the most trouble trying to get the OEM intercooler out just because of the charge pipe on the left hand side. Now if you haven't done the charge pipe upgrade before the intercooler, then more than likely you're gonna be probably pretty safe, because it's plastic and it does tend to bend a little bit, even by the slightest millimeter. A whole lot better than trying to bend an aluminum pipe. Now on the right hand side where the inlet was, it's a silicone, very flexible pipe, so it was a piece of cake. This went from just taking off the under tray to now taking off the air intake, and because this isn't an OEM charge pipe and this is aluminum, there's no budge to it. So I think I'm gonna just end up taking this entire charge pipe off and then getting better access. You know, my worst fear was that I was gonna have to take off the charge pipe. And of course, I've had to take off the charge pipe. I think this is gonna be the easiest way. Now I can directly pull up on this. And it's just, it sucks, but you know, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. Through the entire process of this, I found a metal clip that came out from the bottom left there. Not sure what it goes to. I think it's just a clip of some sort, but here. Holy dirt. Jesus. There's let's just look at the difference right now. So OEM versus the 5-inch stepped HD intercooler from Vrsf. Again, this is why you don't go bigger unless you're gonna go more power, because then you're gonna have a whole bunch of turbo lag. Something I noticed when implementing this intercooler was that yes, technically it does fit OEM. However, if you do want it to fit flush against the fan shroud, then you do have to trim off a little plastic, but in all honesty, I didn't really care. As long as it was mounted fine, I wasn't going to touch the fan shroud at all. So reality is, yes, it does fit kind of OEM. Now, in total time, this took me well over about 2 hours, but that was because I had to take off the new air intake, I had to take off the charge pipe, I had to disconnect a whole bunch of different sensors, and then this as well. So technically, if you didn't have all that, or if you had all disconnected or OEM, it's going to take you maybe an hour to do. So literally now that it's all mounted correctly, it's on there. It's just like I said, if you want to have it flush, got to cut some of the fan shroud. Not a ton, maybe like 1/4 of an inch, but that's it. I hate doing intercoolers. I literally can't wait to get a B58, because that has a charge cooler, meaning it's on top. A lot more expensive, but at least this guy's in. I'm glad I didn't go bigger, but just sucks. I wish it was more flush, but like I said, you'd have to cut it a little bit. The wind's really picked up, but I'm gonna go ahead and fix all this up, get it all nice and tidy, and then we'll see if it's really done anything. Obviously, I can't really feel it, but I just hope everything still works, is what I'm saying. Everything is bolted back up together. It's time to see whether or not everything works. There's no boost leaks, there's nothing. There is one thing, I'm not sure if I showed you, but the new intercooler, I was doing this because, of course, you know, that little jack right there, I ruined some of the fins here, which it does suck because now I'll see that, but it's bound to happen at some point. Yes, obviously you want to keep those things like not being broken and stuff, but this is the OEM intercooler. You can see that that's happened multiple times everywhere. So it's not the end of the world. It does suck, but it is what it is. So that in total took, I think, 2.5, 3 hours, but that's because I had to take off a whole bunch of other things too, so I think it was pretty decent. Alright, so the thing about an intercooler is that you won't necessarily feel anything specifically of an enhancement, so it's more so a preventative measure. That way the engine doesn't heat soak, which that you will feel eventually unless you don't know what you're feeling for. Yeah, feels good. Got an intercooler in. Nice. So guys, stay tuned for the next video, because that is when we are going to put on the carbon fiber rear diffuser. I'm very hyped for it. It's the upgrade that I've wanted the most. So yeah, let's just say this. It's gonna be a really good video. So stay tuned, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.